Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Kevin Steinhauser, and tonight we're going to be working on your essays. We're going to be looking through them, and I'll be giving some live feedback. So I've been an AP reader for 6 years now, and more than half of the time I actually have scored the rhetorical analysis essay. So this year the rubrics are different. They will be new. They're on the 6-point rubric. There's a point for thesis. There are 4 points for evidence and commentary, and there's a point for sophistication. So although I've never scored according to that rubric, we'll still talk through strengths, weaknesses, and I'll talk through what the score might be based on what I do know about these rubrics. As always, if you have questions, let me know. So we did get a lot of submissions, so I'm going to break it down a little bit differently tonight. Instead of droning on and on, just sucked into one person's essay and then not getting to like half of them, I'm going to get to a bunch of them, but little snippets of it that I've kind of organized to make some greater points. So this stream will be useful if you are, if you did submit an essay, I should say. But also I want this to be useful for someone who didn't have time to write, but is just tuning in tonight or watching the replay in order to get some feedback on just what is good writing. What do I need to do to be successful with rhetorical analysis? I'm going to use the same prompt that I shared out through the email list. And again, we got several submissions coming in. So we're going to look at different pieces of many different students' essays. If there's ever a time when I go a little bit maybe quicker than you want me to, slow me down by just ask a question. Say, hey, can you please go over this, or can you explain this one more time? All right, so before we look at your student essays, I want to look at the prompt. We won't do this very quickly. Sometimes I've done a whole live stream just breaking down a prompt and talking about what might be worth talking about if you were or writing about if you were to write the essay. But today we're going to quickly read through Florence Kelley's speech in 1905. It was the 2011 rhetorical analysis prompt. That way everyone's caught up to speed and it's a refresher. Our minds are right back where they need to be, focusing on this rhetorical analysis prompt. Once we read through that, we'll be looking at as many pieces of writing as we can get to tonight. So we're going to end no later than 5 o'clock my time. So that's 8 o'clock Eastern time. No, my bad, 7 o'clock Eastern time. So I'm glad you're here tonight, guys. Let's make this really useful. And again, if there's something that you want me to explain a little bit further, please just let me know and ask a question. I will be keeping an eye on that all stream here tonight. So in the meantime, let's go ahead. I'm going to zoom this in a little bit and begin. All right, tonight I have linked this here, but I actually retyped up the prompt here so it's easy for us to see. This is question 2, the analysis question from 2011. Every student submission tonight, excuse me, use this as their prompt. So we're all looking at the same thing. I will go through this pretty quickly. But I'll read it and you can read along. Florence Kelley was a United States social worker and reformer who fought successfully for child labor laws and improved conditions for working women. She delivered the following speech before the convention of the National American Woman Suffrage Association in Philadelphia on July 22, 1905. Read the speech carefully. Then, write an essay in which you analyze the rhetorical strategies Kelley uses to convey her message about child labor to her audience. Support your analysis with specific references to the text. Okay, this is all the background information that College Board provided in 2011 before getting into her speech. A couple quick things to note here, and then we're going to jump into her speech. I've got to put myself in the mindset of the audience. So the audience are the group of women who are fighting for women's rights in 1905 in Philadelphia at this association. So I can't say we as the audience because we weren't alive then. I've got to talk deliberately in my analysis about who these ladies are and what they would be thinking as Florence Kelley delivers her speech. So all of that's to say, my feedback tonight is going to be very focused on audience because that is what's going to take you to the next level. We're going to look at individual students, what they did with a thesis statement, what they did with a body paragraph, or just a piece of analysis. And I'm just going to tell you, here's what's going well, here's where we can improve on every single one of them. So let's go ahead and jump in. As I read this, I do want you thinking, whether this is your first time or 8th time reading this prompt, what would the audience in Philadelphia in 1905 at this Women's Suffrage Association convention be thinking as Florence Kelley delivers her remarks? Here's the beginning of her speech. There we go. All right, we have in this country 2 million children under the age of 16 years who are earning their bread. They vary in age from 6 and 7 years in the cotton mills of Georgia and 8, 9, and 10 years in the coal breakers of Pennsylvania to 14, 15, and 16 years in more enlightened states. At the very beginning, she is identifying the problem. There are too many people, too many children working in terrible conditions. They're 6 to 15 years old, to 16 years old that she's identifying. This is not just isolated to a portion of the country. This is everywhere from Georgia to Pennsylvania. All right, no other portion of the wage earning class has increased so rapidly from decade to decade as the young girls from 14 to 20 years. Men increase, women increase, youth increase, boys increase in the ranks of the breadwinners, but no contingent so doubles from census period to census period, both by percent and by count of heads, as does the contingent of girls between 12 and 20 years of age. They are in commerce, in offices, in manufacturing. In other words, they're everywhere. Girls are working more than they should have to. Tonight, while we sleep, now she's not talking about me and you, well, we're not the ones sleeping here. She's talking about the women who are currently in front of her. While we sleep, we're going to see that phrase, while we sleep, a lot in this prompt. Anytime you see something over and over again, it signals to you, okay, this is intentional. I've got to key in on what she's doing here. Tonight, while we sleep, several thousand little girls will be working in textile mills all the night through, in the deafening noise of the spindles and the looms, spinning and weaving cotton and wool, silks and ribbons for us to buy. There is clear juxtaposition here of the comfortable lives of the women and the lives of the children. Now, the women in the conference or the convention would be saying, yeah, we hate that, but they'd also be thinking, but we're here to fight for our rights. Kelley is kind of starting out of left field here by talking about children and child labor. So I want you to keep that in mind. Always think about, what is the audience thinking here? You'll see how Florence Kelley ties child labor with women's rights in the second half of this speech. But put yourself in the mind of the audience. They're like, okay, we agree with you, this is a problem, but where are you going with this? All right, let's keep reading. In Alabama, the law provides that a child under 16 years of age should not work in a cotton mill at night longer than 8 hours. And Alabama does better in this respect than any other southern state. North and South Carolina and Georgia place no restriction upon the work of children at night. And while we sleep, little white girls will be working tonight in the mills in those states, working 11 hours at night. Okay, I want you again to put yourself in the mindset of the audience here. This is happening in 1905. We are not too far removed from the Civil War. There'd be a lot of people in that convention center who were alive during the Civil War and whose parents were certainly alive at that time if they weren't. So there's still a pretty big north-south divide in our country. It's a lot better than it was in 1865, but there's still a connotation in our country. The Northerners thought, hey, we're the progressives here. We're doing this right. Those Southerners need to catch up. That's what they might be thinking in 1905 in Philadelphia. Now, when she's saying, hey, Alabama, they've got a law. It's not that good, though. They still let children work 8 hours a night. That's terrible. And everyone else in the South is worse. North and South Carolina, Georgia, they all place no restrictions. The women in the audience would be saying, what a surprise. Those Southerners don't know how to treat people. Now, that might be oversimplifying it. I'm sure not everyone in the audience is like super harshly judging the South, like before walking in or even at this moment. But this is the vibe of the room, or the vibe of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just of the North in 1905. We treat people, they would think, better than Southerners. This seems to be reinforcing that. Let's keep reading. Here's another Southern state that we're going to talk about, Georgia. In Georgia, there is no restriction whatever. A girl of 6 or 7 years, just tall enough to reach the bobbins, may work 11 hours by day or by night, and they will do so tonight while we sleep. Now, let's see what Florence Kelley does from here. Nor is it only in the South that these things occur. So again, they would be thinking, these Southerners don't know how to treat people. But let's see what Florence Kelley does here. Alabama does better than New Jersey. New Jersey is clearly a northern state. For Alabama limits the children's work at night to 8 hours, while New Jersey permits it all night long. Last year, New Jersey took a long backward step. A good law was repealed which had required women and children to stop work at 6 in the evening and at noon on Friday. Now, therefore, in New Jersey, boys and girls, after their 14th birthday, enjoy the pitiful privilege of working all night long. So think, what would the audience be thinking here? She just got them thinking, yeah, those Southerners don't know how to treat people. And then she flipped it around on them. That might be true, but look at your own laws up here in the North. New Jersey, for example, has least or less friendly laws than Alabama does. So if we are judging the South, we better fix these laws up here. We can't be judgmental if we have less friendly laws. Okay, here's more talk about the northern states. This convention's held in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Let's read. In Pennsylvania, until last May, it was lawful for children 13 years of age to work 12 hours at night. A little girl on her 13th birthday could start away from her home at 5:30 in the afternoon, carrying her pail of midnight luncheon as happier people carry their midday luncheon, and could work in the mill from 6 at night until 6 in the morning without violating any law of the Commonwealth. Pennsylvania does not have very friendly laws at this time for children. Now she's going to shift here. She's going to start connecting the right to vote and these laws. So let's look. If the mothers and the teachers in Georgia could vote, would the Georgia legislature have refused at every session for the last 3 years to stop the work in the mills of children under 12 years of age? So the mothers and the teachers, we're talking about women here in 1905. She's basically, it's a rhetorical question, but she's getting everyone in the audience, she's inviting them into this thought. Yeah, if women could vote, these laws wouldn't be in place. We have compassion. She's basically implying the men who are setting these laws don't have enough compassion for children. We could step in and make this right. All right, and then she does the same thing, a rhetorical question, but now talking about a northern state. Would the New Jersey legislature have passed the shameful repeal bill enabling girls of 14 years to work all night if the mothers in New Jersey were enfranchised? Enfranchised, remember, is the right to vote. Until the mothers in the great industrial states are enfranchised, we shall, none of us, be able to free our consciences from participation in this great evil. No one in this room tonight can feel free from such participation. She's talking directly to the women in the crowd. The children make our shoes in the shoe factories. They knit our stockings, our knitted underwear in the knitting factories. They spin and weave our cotton underwear in the cotton mills. Okay, she is basically making the argument you might have heard in a more modern day. I'm sure you've probably heard this argument. If you wear Nike, if you wear Nike shoes or Nike t-shirts, etc., you are contributing to Chinese sweatshops. Now, you might agree or disagree with that argument, but that's the argument she's making here. We are not, she's telling the audience, innocent here, because we are wearing things and buying things that the children are making at night while we sleep. They are like basically working under these terrible all-night conditions to make our lives more comfortable. She's trying to get the audience to feel like angry and also a little bit guilty here. Let's keep reading. Children braid straw for our hats. They spin and weave the silk and velvet wherewith we trim our hats. They stamp buckles and metal ornaments of all kinds, as well as pins and hat pins. Under the sweating system, tiny children make artificial flowers and neckwear for us to buy. They carry bundles of garments from the factories to the tenements, little beasts of burden, robbed of school life, that they may work for us. She calls them beasts of burden because that's how they are treated. They are just working and working and working all night in factories. We do not wish this. We prefer to have our work done by men and women, but we are almost powerless. Notice she says almost. Remember, they're here for the right to vote. They're almost powerless. Not wholly powerless, however, are citizens who enjoy the right of petition. For myself, I shall use this power, the power of petition, in every possible way until the right to the ballot is granted. And then I shall continue to use both, the right to petition and the right to ballot. What can we do to free our consciences? There is one line of action by which we can do much. We can enlist the workingmen on behalf of our enfranchisement just in proportion as we strive with them to free the children. No labor organization in this country ever fails to respond to an appeal for help in the freeing of the children. This is our final paragraph. For the sake of the children, for the republic in which these children will vote after we are dead, and for the sake of our cause, we should enlist the workingmen voters with us in this task of freeing the children from toil. Okay, before we start looking at feedback, two quick things to focus in on, in addition to focusing in on the audience when you're analyzing. So for the thesis point, you have to include, and this is just my recommendation to make sure you really solidify this point. This is the easiest point available. The author, the purpose, and the primary strategies you're going to be analyzing. Don't think that this class, and I've done much more thorough streams on that, so if you just want a little bit more practice, we got plenty of rhetorical analysis streams up from the last month. Just log in and watch some of the replays. That'll be really helpful. But this is just a reminder. This class is not about matching terminology. You can use terminology, absolutely, but that's not, using a fancy word or term is not what's earning the sophistication point or the evidence and commentary points. It's all about just call it what it is. What's the author doing to impact her audience? And then you're explaining. That explanation, again, is what would the audience think? So I've done streams on this before, but the author is going to be doing one of two things. Either reinforcing a mindset of the audience or changing their belief. And here we probably have a little bit of both, right? We are talking about child labor. She's probably reinforcing, yeah, child labor is a problem in this country. But she might be changing a belief. We can fix it if we get the right to vote. Maybe most women wouldn't have seen those two things as intertwined. That was her primary mission here. So as we're talking about the purpose, that's what we want to focus in on. Let's get this exactly right. So we've got to talk about both child labor and women's voting, or the right to vote in our thesis statement. All right, so the rest of the stream tonight, we're just going to be looking at some student examples. Now, this is what I'm excited about. As you have any questions, let me know. I know it's a lot of me talking tonight, but I hope that this is very valuable, and this might be a stream just to pull up and maybe look at like a piece of throughout the year. Just pull up the replay. Wait, what do I need to do for a rhetorical analysis thesis? We'll look at it. In fact, let's look at one now. So here's a sample thesis I pulled out of one of the student submissions. Kelley urges her audience to take a stand and petition against this cruel treatment of children to end throughout the country as fast as it can. Okay, let's break this down. I like that we use the author's last name. I always recommend having that in the thesis. Her audience. I want you to be more specific. tell me, don't just say her audience, because you could say that every single time. Fill that in. So not just her audience, but women in 1905. Maybe we could even do this. Women activists in 1905. That's more specific here. So never just say audience. Actually tell me who the audience is to the best of your ability. Now let's look at the purpose. To take a stand and petition against this cruel treatment of children to end. Let's just pause there. Okay, that's pretty solid. The only thing I'm missing here, and we have petition, but we still want to tie in to get the right to vote. So that's the only thing that's missing here. I think the cruel treatment across the country as fast as it can, that's beautiful, that's perfect in terms of that's exactly what she's going for. So the only additional adjustment I would make to this person's thesis, tie in that she's also fighting for women to get the right to vote in order to make those changes. All right, let's look at another one. Here's another thesis statement. In order to rationalize to women at the National American Women's Suffrage Association, Kelley questions her audience thoroughly to have the audience think more about the severity of child labor. Okay, let's break this one down. Again, it's just strong that I have the author's last name. I always want to make sure I have that. I might just add one thing right here. 1905, I'm therefore getting just in four numbers, very specific. In 1905, that targets me even better than the original thesis. And then here again, I think the wording's a little bit clunky because you did a nice job of telling me who the audience is here. This is really clear. So I think this is a little bit redundant. I want to take this out. So I would rearrange this sentence a little bit. And maybe I would put the purpose here and then strategy. Now, I don't know if questions her audience is the most important strategy. I want to reserve what I say in my thesis for the one or three most important things. Think about it this way. The easiest way to do this is if you have 2 body paragraphs, and you absolutely can just do 2 body paragraphs if they're long, thorough, and beautiful. Then I have 2 primary strategies. If I have 3, then I'm going to list my 3. Now, that's just the easiest way to do this, right? But you want to nail the purpose statement. So Kelley questions her audience thoroughly to have the audience think more about the severity of child labor. Here, let's just kind of brainstorm this. Let me bump this down. Kelley details how widespread the problem is and calls the women to immediate action. These are 2 things that I could talk about. These are not necessarily the only 2 things. In fact, they're certainly not. But let's edit this and let's just make this perfect. So what's the purpose here? In order to rationalize to women at the 1905, excuse me, one more. Oh, never mind, I got it. Okay. In order to rationalize to women at the 1905 National American Women's Suffrage Association that child labor laws need to change. I would just be as specific as that. Kelley details how widespread the problem is and calls the women to immediate action. All right, thank you for your question. LeBron, let's do this. So do we need to bring in the vote thing? Like, could we still get a score even if we didn't address that she was fighting for the right to vote? Yeah, absolutely, you could still get a score. I am not confident enough to be fully honest with you all, even though I've read rhetorical analysis for 4 different years, what exactly it's going to take to get the thesis statement point. I think that you'll get it if you don't mention women's rights or women voting. If you mention the child labor and you have like clear strategies, if it's a clear thesis statement, I think you'll get it. But to be safe, include both parts, because that's just whatever it takes to understand and to show a high level reading of the text. This is a really good question. What I want you to think about is this for like any prompt. If the text, like, let me say it this way. What I want you to do for any prompt is identify the purpose. And the purpose here is clearly twofold, right? So if you talk about one, you're just not quite getting all the way there. Now you still might get the thesis point. What I'm really focusing about, like the whole essay. So I want to talk about both purposes throughout this essay, or like both components of the purpose, in order to maximize my commentary and evidence score. Really good question. If there's any follow-ups there, please let me know. And we have one more. Okay, if we mention 3 strategies in our thesis, but we can't finish all 3 body paragraphs with a given time, would we lose points? That's a good question. It's a really tricky question too, because there's no like formula here. But I would say it would hurt you, it would not help you. So I don't know, because it depends on the quality of your 2 body paragraphs that you did get to, what your score would be. Here's my strong recommendation. Have a game plan in May. And I'm going to talk a lot about this second half of the year as we're like just game planning towards May during my live streams. You should absolutely know on a good day, how many body paragraphs are you going to write? And you should absolutely know, like, on a bad day, like if it's a really hard prompt, how many body paragraphs are you going to write? And honestly, here's my experience. I've been teaching AP for, this is year 9. At this point, let me talk about last year because that's more relevant. Like in May, my students last year, 2/3 of them for every essay wrote 2 body paragraphs. They wrote a pretty good intro, pretty good conclusion, and 2 really strong body paragraphs. And then, you know, the rest of the students wrote 3 body paragraphs just because they had time for it. I really push my students to say, hey, less is more in terms of quantity, but more is more in terms of length and the quality of the analysis. So for each body paragraph, I don't want you to feel like you need to get to 3. I need you to feel like I gotta really go deep with the 2 or the 3 that I choose to go with. So that's a long way of saying this. If you don't get to 3, don't start a body paragraph. Like, you don't have to signal to your reader, oh, I ran out of time, so here's my topic sentence and I'm going to be done. You can like be more clever with that. If you only get time for 2 body paragraphs, in your conclusion you can say, these are 2 of the most important strategies, but I also recognize that these are working in conjunction with a few more. And you can even list out, like, here's other strategies that I've identified, I just didn't have time to unpack. That's not going to super help you. What's going to super help you is how you unpack those other 2. And long story short, if you think you're going to get to 3, but then realize, oh, I'm only going to get to 2, take 5 seconds, cross it out of your thesis or erase it out of your thesis. Tweak your thesis so there's only 2. That just helps you because your essay is therefore complete and coherent. Great question, really practical, relevant question. All right, keep the questions coming. If any more arise, guys, we're going to move to another student example. Now, I told you just about 20 minutes ago that our student streamer, Justin, is working on embedding quotes, just I think next week. So in about 9 days, maybe. This is a quick preview of that stream. I just have pulled out one. This is just a good example of it. So whoever submitted this, nice job. So many students, and I'm not even talking about the ones that were just submitted, but I just mean like every single time we do a rhetorical analysis, say, Kelly says, blah, 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 right? They just quote. This student right here did a great job. Look how many words are quoted. 3. And sorry, I typed this up, so that's why these, for some reason, are backwards. But, so ignore that. But focus on the flow of the quotes here. Let's just read this. Kelly calls out Alabama for positively creating a law only allowing children to work a maximum of 8 hours per night shift, but also shed light on how New Jersey has done bad by repealing their laws of limiting work for children on Fridays. Okay, like this phrase like has done bad, like we can work on our vocabulary and our phrasing here. So this is not a perfect sentence. What I want to focus on, and this comma shouldn't be here, I'm going to take it out. But what I want you to focus on is, this is Kelly, but this is the student writing it. This is all of Kelly's ideas. So think about it this way, and Justin's going to expand on this for an entire live stream in next week. Paraphrase, small quote, paraphrase, small quote. This student is in control of the writing. He or she is not giving up control to Florence Kelley. We all have read Florence Kelley. I'm going to tell you something real quick. We all fly down to a big convention center to do your AP essay scoring. There's 1,000+ AP language readers. The first 4 hours of the week, we do not grade a single essay. We read the prompt, we read sample essays from College Board, just like the ones that Stephanie Kirk is going to go over next week. And we train ourselves and we get used to scoring on the rubric. All of that's to say here, excuse me. All of that's to say, we know what Florence Kelley said. We want to know what you say. So you do have to quote, but less is more with your quoting. So I like this student's example of paraphrase, 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 quote, paraphrase, paraphrase, quote. That's what I want to see more of. So that's more of like a writing style point, but it's more than that because it's going to get you it's going to expand your opportunity. You only have 40 minutes. It's going to show that you're in control of the writing. You'll have more room to put your ideas out there. Okay. We're going to do 1 or 2 full body paragraphs here. And then we're going to end with just like excerpts of them so I can get to as many students as possible. We've got just 25 more minutes, and I do want to cut it to honor everyone's time. But I will stay, don't get me wrong, if there's questions still coming in. We have a question right now. Is it a bad idea to quote a whole sentence in your introduction paragraph? Matthew, yes, it's a bad idea to quote a whole sentence, ever. So, excuse me, I'm a little sick tonight. Sorry, guys. So, what I want you to do is focus on what is the key part of that sentence. Paraphrase up to it in your own words. Quote like the key 2 or 3 words, and then paraphrase or just end the sentence. So my advice is never quote a whole sentence. There's exceptions, like good writers can say, okay, this is when it's appropriate. But in general, that's something you absolutely want to stray away from. Thank you for the question, Matthew. Let's read. I'm going to zoom this in a little bit more so you guys can read a little bit easier. This is one of your submissions for a body paragraph. After lecturing about the hardships the children are going through, Kelley then puts the responsibility of the children's burdens in the audience. She does this when she refers to the goods the children make for the audience to buy. These children make our shoes in the shoe factory. Hearing this makes the audience feel guilt, I would say guilty. While they were sleeping through the night and being ignorant of the children's struggle, the kids were working hard to make the audience's clothing and accessories. The audience knows that adults are the ones that should be taking care of the children, not the other way around. So listening to how dependent they were on the children's labor makes them feel depressed, irresponsible, and wicked. Kelley addresses this feeling the audience has by stating what the audience is thinking. We prefer our work done by men and women. Now that it was said out loud, it is clear to the audience what the right thing is. They know that child labor is an injustice. If they weren't able to connect the dots before, they could do it now. By Kelley saying the audience's thoughts out loud, she makes it clear what she is trying to say. We don't want child labor because it's unfair and it must be stopped. Okay, this is a pretty solid paragraph here. Let's break it down. Let's go topic sentence real quick. I like this a lot. Here's why. The best topic sentences, and I want you guys to really get this point. I'm glad that LeBron, you submitted this one. The best topic sentences put the strategy that you're discussing in context. What's happening in the essay at the time of the strategy. So I like that this topic sentence says, after lecturing about the hardships, because maybe that was the first body paragraph. Remember, I just pulled one. And even if it wasn't, it's telling you how this fits into the bigger picture. So I really like that opening. That's what so many students don't do. So many students just start here. And that would be fine. This is just better. Okay. Kelley then puts the responsibility of the children's burdens. I like this. I would even say to the women in the audience, even being more direct here. I would put a period here. I think this is just a really solid topic sentence as it stands. This could be a solid second sentence building into your first quote. She does this when she refers to the goods the children make for the audience to buy. Now, just like I said as I was leading through this, you could quickly say, she discusses clothing items that many of the women would probably be wearing as they listen to her speech. Now, you never want to just drop a quote in. You want to introduce it and again embed it. I won't focus on that for my feedback here, but this could certainly be, even though it's a short sentence, it could be condensed. So I won't worry about that yet. I'll move on to the analysis for this round, but keep that in mind. So here's the quote. These children make our shoes in the factory. Hearing this makes the audience feel guilt. I like that. Again, you could impact it even more by saying, because they are part of the problem. Maybe you could say, they probably had never made this connection before, but now, and then keep going, finish that thought. All right, let's skip down to one more thing I want to look at in this one. Right here. The audience knows that adults are the ones that should be taking care of children, not the other way around. So listening to how dependent they were on children's labor, I would say instead of makes them, this is a small tweak, but I recommend it for everybody, would make them feel depressed. The reason for that is like, let's have a little bit of nuance here. Let's not assume everyone does and feels the same thing, but it's saying would, and maybe even better would be would likely. That way you're adding a little bit of nuance to, like, yeah, I'm getting in their head. I think this is the case, but like, I didn't talk to a woman in the crowd, so this is just my best inference here. Okay, let's move to the next one. If there's any part you want me to circle back to, I'm not going to hit every single point of feedback, just because I want to get through as many as I can, but I will always circle back if someone says, ask a question. Let's move to a second entire body paragraph, and then we'll just look at like some key parts of analysis throughout. Here's the second one from a different student submission. Kelley talks about the difficulties the kids are going through in the beginning of the passage. Kelley refers to how while the audience is relaxing and sleeping through the night, little girls are working in the mills to produce goods for us to buy. This quote makes the audience grieve over the children's hardships. Kelley's speech was given at a women convention, so the majority of the people attending were ladies. Good. I would move that sentence up to the intro. That way you don't have to like take time out of your quality body paragraph analysis to say that, but very appropriate to have said somewhere in your essay. All right, many of these ladies, so I would just, if I move, let's see, this sentence out to the intro, I would then just say many of the ladies in the audience were mothers who had children. So they understood, that's a typo, that it wasn't fair for young girls to work while they relax, since these kids aren't as strong as adults. Knowing what these children are going through, just a typo, I just copied these in. So just be careful with that when you're writing it out. But anyway, knowing what these children are going through makes the audience have a desire to take the pain away from the children, even if it means putting the burden on themselves. People hate to see weak boys and girls suffer and want to see them be happy. So the audience will do whatever it takes to achieve that. Okay, pretty solid here. One thing I would recommend, guys, every single body paragraph, my recommendation, and there's no like hard and fast rules here, but my recommendation is have 2 different quotes that you unpack. Look at the first quote that's up here. Little girls are, quote, working in the mills to produce goods for us to buy. This is a perfect example of an embedded quote. So that's going really well. All I would recommend is find another one, put it about halfway done. So basically, think of it this way. Quote, analyze, quote, analyze, quote, analyze. Let me just make a point here. Here's my quick outline that's ideal. This is not College Board. This is just me saying, hey, this is the most efficient way to go. There are many ways you can do this, but here's my recommendation. Quote that's embedded. Analyze, like several sentences talking about what the audience would be thinking, and then you're just going to do it again. That's the ideal scenario here. I've got a quote, I talk about it, this is what the audience would be thinking. I got another quote, and I'm doing the same thing. So this paragraph, pretty strong, but my recommendation is have a whole nother quote that you unpack. Yeah, that's going to be a long paragraph then. But again, I'm taking this whole sentence out because I'm moving it to the front. That I just want you to get to the key analysis better, or more quickly, I should say. The only other thing that I would add here is be even more direct, like the previous one was, that the audience would likely feel guilty. Therefore, they would want change. Think about your analysis this way, guys. Think about what the audience's mindset might have been before hearing Florence Kelley's speech. Think about what it would therefore be after hearing Florence Kelley's speech. Okay, if you think about it that way, just like walk through what they're thinking in the moment and how they would lead. So here, it might literally be, like I said, just when I was reading through it, the women in the audience probably had not put too much thought into child labor. Now, they certainly would agree that it's a problem. But we're not done there, because then, again, what these two paragraphs haven't done that I've selected from you guys is talk about the women's right to vote. Now, that's okay. We're looking at these in isolation, but the best essays are going to talk about both of the components of the purpose, the child labor and the women's right to vote. So if this was your first body paragraph, the second one should talk about the right to vote and like tie them together just like Florence Kelley did. All right, we're going to do a few more pieces of student feedback, but now we're going to look at, and this is crazy, but this slide right here is just a piece of a body paragraph. So we're just going to look at as many as we have time for until 5 o'clock. My time, 7 o'clock Eastern, on snippets of body paragraphs. Let's read this one. Kelley leaves the women at the convention with a call, that should be to action, against child labor. She acknowledges that the path to making change is limited. However, there is one line of action they can employ. Okay, this is all basically identifying the strategy. We're not analyzing yet. That's not a problem. Remember, this paragraph's really long. I cut it. This is about a little bit more than half of it, honestly. It was a super long one. So that's okay, just calling it what it is. Here's a pretty good job of embedding quotes again. By enlisting the workingmen on behalf of their movement to free the children, they found a new mode through which to get their goals accomplished. This language, it's almost trying a little bit too hard to be like smart. It's kind of weird for me to say that, but be careful on your wording. Like, just speak clearly and confidently. Here, they found a new mode through which to get their goals accomplished. Sounds smart, but the meaning isn't as clear as I want it to be, actually. So by enlisting the workingmen on behalf of their movement to free the children, the women can accomplish their goals. Just make it really clear and concise. And now we find the quote, this is where I make my money. This is where I earn my score. I have 4 points available in evidence and commentary. Evidence is choosing the most important evidence, not the most evidence. Don't get that confused. It's not cite 25 different lines. No, it's cite the most important lines and unpack them deeply. That's how you'll move up that 4-point scale. Let's read. Kelley is aware that the women cannot achieve everything on their own, given their social standings at the time. I really like that sentence. It's just like contextualizing the quote. I still want to hear about the audience. Keep that in mind. But let's keep reading. We got a long way to go. However, by raising the idea that they can ally themselves with the working men to fulfill the movement's goals of suffrage. Okay, this sentence is a little bit flawed. It's actually a fragment, even though it's long, because of the way it's written. There should be a comma here and more. But let's just keep reading and kind of see where this student's going. Kelley gives these women hope and empowers them, because before they could only exercise their right to petition and protest. But now they have a new avenue through which they can make their voices heard in the fight for suffrage against child labor. It's not full suffrage, there should be a comma there, but it's a step in the right direction for them. Okay, I like where we're going here. So gives these women hope and empowers them. I like this because it's audience focused. I would even say here, and guys, just how I split this, the student did exactly what I said in a previous. Well, I must have deleted it. When I went through the like outline topic sentence, quote, analyze, I cut this paragraph right here because there's a second quote that the student continued to unpack. Before I go to my second quote, I might want to have like another sentence here. Now, let's be clear. I got to do all this in 40 minutes. So let's type in one sentence that I'm going to add. I'm going to put it in bold so it's clear that it's my sentence. And then let's talk about, okay, how do I make sure I get here? So think of it this way. Let's pretend I'm about to write this big, beautiful analysis sentence. The deeper the analysis, the better my score. And by deep analysis, I mean unpacking how the audience is thinking and feeling. So although this is long, I'm going to type in bold the best sentence that's going to earn my score. And then we'll talk about how to get to these deeper levels more quickly because we are under time constraints. So let's build up to it. However, by raising the idea that they can ally themselves with the working men to fulfill the movement's goals of suffrage, Kelley gives these women hope and empowers them, because before they could only exercise their right to petition and protest, but now they have a new avenue through which they can make their voices heard in the fight for suffrage and against child labor. I like, again, how both those two things are intertwined here. The student's doing a really good job. It's not full suffrage, but it's a step in the right direction for them. The women would likely feel motivated to go home and talk to their husbands, because most would be married in 1905, about this cause, just as Kelley encouraged them to. Okay, so again, I'm just talking about the audience. I want to get to the deepest possible level of analysis. Now, how would I get there quicker? Because I am under time constraints. This person had a long body paragraph. To be honest, it would be hard to write even 2 of these in 40 minutes. Remember, we got to read the whole prompt. That took us 10 minutes. And we weren't even like reading and annotating. I was just kind of doing it pretty quickly. And like as we do that, we would have to figure out the most important strategies that we talk about. This is a hard thing to do. So how do we get to these deeper levels more quickly? Well, I'm moving. Maybe I'm combining these 2 sentences into one, just straight to the point. I would leave this as it is. It's a pretty solid embedding quote sentence. And then I would probably combine these 2 sentences. Let's read them. Kelley is aware that the women cannot achieve everything on their own given their social standings at the time. However, by raising the idea that they can ally themselves with the working men to fulfill the movement's goals of suffrage. You can combine those 2 sentences together. Let's move this quicker to get to even adding more of these deeper levels. This right here, guys. Oops. Right here is where my score is truly earned. And I rinse and repeat. I got another quote. I quickly get to these deeper levels of discussion, of analysis. All right, we have a question coming in. All right, Claire, I see you talking about this, and you ask, I need help in the body paragraph. How would you elaborate? Yeah, So kind of that sentence in bold that I just typed is the perfect example of how would you elaborate this. Like I said, it doesn't have to be super long, and I don't hear me incorrectly. Like if this is half of a body paragraph on the slide right now, that is long enough. The point is, let's get to the deeper levels quicker. So I'm again combining this into one topic sentence. I got my quote. I'm combining this, and then I'm spending more time here. Like if I wanted to even go further on this, I would keep talking about the women. Maybe I would say how they'd be feeling right now. After feeling angry and guilty, because remember how the text flows, this is after that. After feeling guilty and angry about child conditions, the women in the audience would be anxious for change. Kelley provides them the opportunity to be a part of this change. This would be empowering to them. And again, I would say this would likely get them to go home and start making the change now. They would enlist the help of their husbands as they continue to fight for the right to vote. So I would just, when I say go deeper, I'm just saying use the audience as your advantage. I always say this to my students or in my streams, get in the head of the audience. Stay there as long as you can. All right. Hey, if you want me to explain that any further, let me know. Well, let's actually do this because I know that's like Claire, the most important question that you could possibly ask for rhetorical analysis. So let's do one more where we just spend a little bit of time in the deep parts of analysis. So let's kind of like keep answering your question. And this will be our final example tonight. We got through a bunch of them. I will stick around until there's every question's been answered if any more come in, but this will be our last example. All right, Kelley gets to voice her pure opinion while giving this speech by mentioning they should enlist the working men instead of having children working while they sleep at night. Okay, good job embedding quotes. I don't know about the topic sentence, gets to voice her pure opinion. I think we need to like hone this in on a strategy more clearly that we're talking about. But with that said, let's read what the rest of this says. Now, again, this is part of a body paragraph. This student had a second quote after what I've typed up here. All right. Kelley's main point of choosing to repeatedly address the age of the children is to bring awareness to who is working. Kelley's other purpose is to get the woman to revolt against the men for their rights. This is a small misread. This would be very negative. This would decrease your score. A misread is when you just don't understand the words on the page. And this is hard, like it's common. She does not ask the women to revolt. She asks them to enlist the help of the men. So, hey, let's get them on our side. They're not going to like start a big war with the men. All right, but let's keep reading. She wants to address the problem that the men are putting the weakest to work besides the men. This is effective because it shows how women should stand up for what they believe in order to become successful and create a change. Now, how do I improve this paragraph? Other than fixing the misread, I'm talking about what the audience would be thinking and feeling. Let's focus in on this because I think this is maybe what the topic sentence should be. This paragraph does need some reworking. Kelley's main point of choosing to repeatedly address the age of the children is to bring awareness to who is working. Let me kind of just get this out of the way and let's just jump in here with what I would say. This is how I get to deeper levels of analysis. After your quote, let's just get right to the audience's thoughts. Realizing just how bad the problem of child labor is, the women would likely feel outraged. They might remember when they were children, and which would make it personal. Well, they likely did not have to work all night. Remember, this is post-Civil War. So a lot of the women in the audience would not have had to work all night. They honestly, like the society was different in their childhood. So that's kind of what I'm tapping into here. Well, they likely did not have to work all night when they were little girls. They would remember what it felt like to be a child, and they would immediately be filled with empathy. Stuff like that. So I would just keep diving into these levels of talking about how the audience thinks and feels. Okay. If there's any last questions, let me know now. I'm going to pause it there. So here's what I'm really focusing on. Audience, audience, audience. In my classroom, I have a poster of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And he takes up, I'm looking at it right now, about 30% of that poster. I do that intentionally. Every time we do rhetorical analysis, I point to that poster and say, hey, this is, if we were to analyze I Have a Dream, we would have to talk about Martin Luther King. But the poster pans out and sees the thousands of people in the attendance on that day. We would also have to talk about the audience. What would his words be stirring in them? All right, I got one question. Let's answer it. Thanks for the questions tonight. Okay, Claire, thanks for the question. You say, I'm slightly confused. My teacher told me not to focus on the audience's view, but rather to expand and provide examples. What should I do? Claire, just in the chat, tell me real quick so I can answer this best. What does your teacher mean when he or she says expand and provide examples? Is that examples of like textual evidence? Here's basically what I think. It is all about the audience, because let's go. I'm going to throw my slides back up real quick, and I'm going to go back to something that tells me it's all about the audience. So bear with me for 1 second. Let me scroll up. This is the background knowledge, but also the prompt. Then write an essay in which you analyze the rhetorical strategies Kelley uses to convey her message about child labor to her audience. This shows me this is what the task is entailing. I need to talk about the audience. So maybe your teacher, is saying expand. When you expand, that expansion should be focused on how would the audience respond? What is the audience thinking here? If you're not talking about the audience, you're not doing the task that College Board is asking you to do. It's all about the audience when I'm looking at the most important strategies. And it's tough because you've got to get in the audience's head. But absolutely, that is what this task is all about. So you might want to clarify with your teacher. You might want to talk to him or her what we talked about tonight. But I want everyone in the country to understand this. Rhetorical analysis. Choose the most important texts, choose the most important strategies, the 2 or 3, depending on your body paragraph count. And then choose the most important and impactful quotes from those. And then finally, and most importantly, tell me what the audience would be thinking while they're hearing or reading the work. All right, everybody. Great question, Claire. If you have any more clarity, please let me know. Other than that, guys, we have a lot of streams coming up for AP Language in the next 9 days. I hope you keep coming to them. We really appreciate your engagement. It's November. Thanksgiving is coming, but this is a really important time to focus in on our skills here. The year will be going quickly through the holidays and stuff, so let's keep after it. All right, I do have another question that came in. I have 2 more questions that came in. Okay. What grade would you give the essays that you looked at for the body paragraphs 1 through 4? Okay, that's a good question, LeBron. Let's talk just about the 2 body paragraphs. Those were on track. Those body paragraphs on that 4-point scale of evidence and commentary, those were flirting between 2 and 3. And to be honest, I don't have the answer there because I still want to get more fully trained to say, like, I definitely know this is a 2 or 3. I'd say the feedback that I gave you guys tonight secures your 3. I think 4s are going to be pretty tough. 4s, you really have to spend a lot of that time in that deep area. But if you shore up the feedback that I gave you, so the topic sentence is super clear, but also talk about audience even more, that would move you firmly into that 3 out of 4 category. Good question. If we don't have a conclusion, would that lower our score? No, but have one. So like here's the real answer here. I want you to have a complete holistic essay. So the best essays will have a conclusion. The best essays will not have a generic rote conclusion that sounds just like every other conclusion in the book. So we won't work on that tonight, but just know, like, we've got time. It's November. This test is in May. But the best writers will have a conclusion. At the same time, conclusions often are not what make or break a score. They might solidify a score of like, oh, I don't know if it's 3 or 4. Oh, they had a good conclusion. Yeah, it's a 4. But it's not going to like make or break a score. Where to focus in on is analyze, analyze, analyze. Good question. Sorry, I don't have like a clear answer just because it's not like a formulaic process here. You don't get a conclusion point, but they can help you. A generic one that says nothing can hurt you. Keep that in mind. So my recommendation is work on it throughout the year, but really focus most of your time on quality body paragraphs. My students asked them to take 2 or 3 minutes to write their conclusion. Claire, let's follow up. Let's follow up with Claire's question here. So Claire said, for instance, I have to write about a different prompt. This change in tone. Okay, so you're just saying this is a quote from a different prompt you wrote. This change in tone allows the audience to understand her sudden seriousness. But she said this was unnecessary. Okay, so your teacher said this was unnecessary. Also, if the author employs metaphor, how would I explain it? I was confused when my teacher told me. Okay, so we got 2 questions here. Let's just break them down real quick. I don't agree. I think that sentence about tone and audience is necessary and helpful. I would just have a follow-up conversation with your teacher about what we talked about tonight, and just get some clarifying. I think definitely talking to your teacher is in order to just get on the same page here. When it comes to the metaphor, same way you would explain anything. Like if it's a metaphor, it would be, here's what the metaphor is, here's what it means, here's how the audience would take that metaphor and like think through it. So again, it's all about the audience. So I really hope, Claire, that you can keep coming and working with us through Fiveable the next few streams for rhetorical analysis. And in the meantime, talk to your teacher about, okay, what exactly do you think I need to be doing here? Because it is all about the audience. All right, last question. Would you recommend having a vehicle, like a hook or common theme throughout the essay, or to be too time-consuming? Yeah, if you can pull it off, go for it. Not required, but again, you just got to maximize your minutes. So I'll have a lot of really practical streams come up March, April, even the first week of May to really say, hey, how can I maximize my minutes? In the meantime, you've got time, play around, like get better at writing. That's what this class is all about, more than prepping for a test. I know our streams are very test prep focused, but more importantly, just in your lives, is becoming better writers. And I think like having an overarching thing throughout an essay is absolutely a sign of a sophisticated writer. So I'd say, yeah, go for it, get better at it, and then just see if you can pull it off in 40 minutes or not. And if you can't, know what you can pull off in 40 minutes just to kind of jump through this big old AP language and composition exam hoop. All right, everybody, great participation tonight. I really appreciate everyone who submitted work, and I hope you can come back for some Fiveable streams in the next 9 days. We've got a lot going on. If I don't see you, this is my last stream until Thanksgiving. Have a great Thanksgiving break, and we'll see you throughout the year. Thanks, everybody.